afternoon, and thank you for inviting us to help close out your conference. I am Portland City Commissioner Joanne Hardesty.
And I'm Portland City Commissioner Carmen Rubio, and we're so sorry that we were unable to join you today in person, but we're so grateful that you chose Portland and hope that you've enjoyed your time in our city.
Most importantly, though, we hope you leave here energized from your time together and refreshed in the critical work you do. Before joining the Portland City Council, we both worked in our communities, organizing and advocating for greater equity in the city with a long history of white supremacy and entrenched systems of power and oppression. We have been in your shoes, and we know that you work very hard.
Portlanders are realizing that our community is lacking until we bring all residents in as equal partners.
And so what does that look like in concrete terms? It means a change in leadership. For the first time in Oregon's history, both Portland City Council and Multnomah County Commission are led by a majority minority individuals. And roughly a third of our legislators today are Black, Indigenous, Latinx, and other people of color. But we didn't get here overnight. Our communities have organized for over a century to build our own capacity in Portland. Our communities have put in the time and are doing the advocacy that's gotten us this far. And we're prepared to do what it takes to fundamentally change how governments do business. Too often government gets away with actually using very nice bullet points about their values, but if the values are not reflected in outcomes, then nothing will change. Democracy should be about ensuring that every single member of our community has access to equal justice. We don't have that yet.
We can ensure democracy is racially equitable when we ensure that democracy is accessible. Because just because democracy exists doesn't mean that all of our communities have equal access to participate democratically. So we need to focus on what that looks like and how that shows up in our communities, and what are local municipalities responsible? What is our piece where we need to ensure that we're creating the access needed? Do we ensure that we have representation when we're developing policy? Are we meeting in communities where they can get, equitably to the meetings where we're discussing something that's high stakes and that impacts them first? Are we ensuring to consult with the right folks as we develop something that's highly consequential in our community? All these day-to-day decisions are about access to democracy, and until we get that right, we're not really going to have the ability to shape it in the way that it needs to be. So it's incumbent upon all of us, and not just leaders of color, it's everyone, and particularly white allies and folks, to help ensure that for the whole community. It's not solely the responsibility of people of color in this work.
Well, and honestly, I would say the pushback is coming now because all of a sudden there are more people of color running and getting elected in the public office at the national level, at the local, the state level. And until people get comfortable with being uncomfortable with the diverse changes that are coming to our democracy, then we're going to continue to have the pushback from folks who like the status quo just the way it is.
Yes, and I would also just add that that's why I take every opportunity, and I know Commissioner Hardesty, you take every opportunity when we have a critical appointment to a board or commission, when we're developing policy. It's not just about the regular people that show up, which is great, and they're dedicated advocates, but really critically look to make sure that we're not leaving out any voices, or that there's another critical perspective that's not at the table. It matters that we're here.
Yes.
And you're seeing that in showing how you're seeing that show up in how we staff our board and commissions, how we staff our offices,
Yes.
The policies that we choose to prioritize in this work. And it makes for more challenging conversations sometimes, but we have a better outcome.
You're so true. I remember the good old days of visiting City Hall, and it was always a person of color at the reception desk.
Only.
But if you got past the reception desk, you did not see any people of color in the halls of City Hall at all. And so I have to say, Commissioner Rubio and I have radically changed that outcome because that has not been the norm in this building.
The advice that I would offer is to find your people, because that can make the whole difference in how you experience your role. And your role as a city or municipal worker is critically important, especially during this time. We are a part of the system that has been designed to keep people like us out, and that's why it's critically important that we're here. Because we know what needs to happen and what needs to change. But that can be very taxing. It can make you depressed. It can make you outraged. And I'll just be fully upfront that in my first year, I went through a lot of those emotions in this role, new role. And but I found my people, and they are really the ones that help me get through, because I am reminded that I'm not alone in the work. You're not alone in the work. That's why affinity groups are so important. That's why coming together is so important, keeping that strong tether to the community and that line of communication open to the community. I sometimes have to remind my external community and family, hey, today I need you to tell me why it's important to be here. And that's a very real thing, and we need to ask for the love and the help to nourish ourselves so that we can get back in there and do what we need to do. So I would just say, stand up for yourself. One thing that somebody that I very much respect and taught me a lot early in my career said, the biggest act of social justice you can do is to take care of yourself first.
I can tell you, as the first Black woman elected to the Portland City Council, how challenging it is still today to talk about race and the inequitable outcomes that so many people experience. And so let me tell you this, being a strong leader means that you're gonna have pushback, that people are gonna challenge your data, that people are gonna challenge your expertise, right? I would say stand firm. Stand firm, because the pushback will come. And I gotta tell you, this is not easy work. Some days I go home and I pull the covers up over my head and go, what have I gotten myself into? But guess what? The next day I get up, I brush it off, and I'm back at it. Because why? Because this is important for the generations that are coming after me. Native Americans have a saying that we do this work today for 7 generations into the future. I personally hope it doesn't take 7 generations to fix this, but for me, that's a good vision to know. I may not benefit from the changes that I'm making today, but I know the person that takes this seat after me will, and the people that come after that will. And I totally support what Commissioner Rubio said about finding your people and taking care of yourself. The drain that this job takes on you when you are a person of color, especially when you're the first, I am so grateful that Commissioner Rubio joined me, let me tell you, because I was here alone for a minute, and it did not feel good, right? And so knowing that the community, though, is paying attention. I mean, I think that's the thing that inspires me to get up every day, is knowing that community members who never had a voice, who never believed that what they said mattered inside City Hall, today they know their voice matters. And I think that's what gives me the strength to keep going, right? So on the hardest days that I have, I remember that the NAACP Portland branch is almost 100, it is actually 150 years old this year.
Wow.
And if you think about 150 years ago, in a place like Portland, Oregon, a group of people came together and said, you know what we need? We need a racial justice organization, right? That's, I think, what just reinforces for me that we are at the right place in history. We are putting down we're drawing the right line in the sand, and we're saying that now is the time for our democracy to finally live up to what we believe it could be. And we all know we're not there yet. But what we know is everything we do today is getting us closer to that point.
Really good. That's all. Yeah.
Great.
Well done.
Nice.
Well,